Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. This is Joe, the bearded historian. He'll tell you an interesting story. Be careful of his soldiers, they can be brats. This is Angel, she's an entity. She'll cause chaos and plant her hands at you. This is Sue, she likes spirits, not the alcohol. She's the reason this channel exists. This is David, he likes fire trucks. He's here occasionally. Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. We preserve his story.
Alright, it's late. And we're going to post this tomorrow. But I finally got the pictures done. And Joe's decided to do a little piece on local history, sort of. You'll understand once you listen to the video. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy it a little bit. But before all that, we've got a race. I've got butterflies, because, well, it's been nice enough, and I haven't seen a butterfly yet, but hopefully they're out and about. Are you guys ready? Here we go. Shout out time. Here's a shout out just for you. You support me, I support you. The shout out is for our friends. Let's see who it is today. There's everybody lined up. We got to go. We got Cable, we got Tessa, we got Up to Bob, Hillbillies, Reggie, Maya, Anthony, Sandra, Elsie. There's Heather and my Linda and April and VOC. My boys, David, Mercy. Let's see, Reggie, Jerry, Lower, GA Girl, Kev, Tay Eats, Jason, Big Ben, A-Space, Lower, Adventure, Lucky Cat, Sandra, Jeannie, Hugh Knott, there's Tom G. Let's see, who else do I see? Rushmore, Marketplace, Belle. There's Generations. Oh, is it going to be Belle? It's going to be Belle. Alright, this is Miss Southern Belle. Let's see. God, Family, Friends, Cross, and other things. So she's furry Amazon haul. So this was a haul for Amazon. That's not furry. That's a diamond painting, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see what else has she got. Quick hauls. Friend mail. She's got some shorts. Diamond paintings, it looks like mostly. And then some lives where she's been doing some shopping. Ross and Five Below. So shopping and crafts and all kinds of things. So check that out. Like, share, comment. And enjoy the rambling. Alright, files. Joe has decided to do something historical and hysterical at the same time. And we're going to try not to poke too much fun at them. But I might get a little bit snarky. So be patient, because I have opinions. But that's okay.
Opinions?
Just small ones.
Yeah, small. Water. Small? Yeah, right. Okay. For the Wayback Machine, let's turn it back to 1862. Long time ago. Way before I was born, way before dinosaurs. Just kidding.
Wait. Was it before dinosaurs? I don't think you got your timeline right.
Well, the dinosaurs are already in the museums. Those dinosaurs.
Ah, I see.
Yes. Now, the topic we've got is the South Dakota State Historical Society. This is a large organization that works kind of in cohesion with the South Dakota Department of Education, located in Pierre, South Dakota, or Pierre for those of you who like to make fun of it. Currently the museum is going under renovations until the summer of 2026, so hopefully this summer we can go and peek at it. Now, where it gets into the timeline, and it's kind of fun, because originally it was known under the fun name as the Old Settlers Association of Dakota Territory. Now, it was renamed to the Historical Society of Dakota in 1863, and then bumped up to South Dakota Historical Society in 1890, just months after the state was put into the Union. And for those of you that want to have some fun, they actually split Dakota into two pieces, north and south. We gave north the name north because they had enough problems deciding on where it is. Anyway, 1901, the South Dakota legislature took the society into the state government when it established the organization as an official arm of the state government, the State Historical Society of South Dakota. Well, about 1925, because we like moving letters around, the name was changed to the present name, South Dakota State Historical Society. With each name change, the property of the old society was formally transferred to its successor. Now, over the years, the society was quartered in various places, in the territorial post office in Yankton, the old territorial capital, the Pierre University, the temporary state capital, and then the current state capital in 1932. The society opened with the new Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Building, and in 1989, the Culture Heritage Center was opened as the home for all the archives, a museum, and its administrative offices. Interestingly enough, the cultural heritage reminds you an awful lot like a bunker.
Ooh.
Because it's buried under a hill, but you know, they make it look pretty cool.
On a list of places we need to go.
Exactly.
Not that they'll get us out of there anytime soon.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we went in there, I'd need at least a week, minimum.
You probably need more of that because you have to keep coming back to me and telling me to be nice to them.
This is my wife, don't worry. She gets snarky. Don't worry about it, you know.
I'm sorry. It's their job to know shit. And when you know more than they do, it's sad.
Yeah.
Because it's literally their job. They have degrees.
Well, the thing I love is that these are the guys who went to school for this stuff.
Like I said, they have degrees.
Yeah, and I'm just, you know, the Tom Bit guy off the street.
I repeat, they have degrees. Apparently not in South Dakota history, though.
No. Well, a few of them do have degrees in South Dakota, but then for some reason, like this most recent guy, well, I'll fill in the blanks as we get there, because mentions that the initial directors were called secretary when the society was reorganized.
Because that makes sense.
The directors were called superintendent.
Because that makes sense.
Yeah. Since Dayton Kennedy, the chief executive, has been titled director, and directors are all volunteers until the third year of Doan Robinson's tenure. Now, the title, state historian, is independent of being director. Recently, many directors have also been state historian. Now, the Society's first programs were in the winter of 1862 and 1863, still offers educational programs currently. One program since 1901 has been the annual meeting, and in 1980, the annual meeting expanded from a business and keynote address to one with multiple topics and a single track with an organizing theme. In 2009, the annual meeting became today's State History Conference. I read about those. The spring of 1863, the Society accepted its first library collection items. Around the turn of the 20th century, state workers managed the Society's library and state library collections together. In 1975, the South Dakota State Archives were incorporated into the Society, which continues to operate them and also functions as a public research non-lending library.
Are you still there?
Yes. Too much dust from the archives.
Yeah.
The Society has employed a librarian and manuscript curator who were then included in the state archives. Now, interesting item, and this frustrates the heck out of me. And I don't know how their library is even going to work. Because when we were talking to the library lady at Piedmont, she said that they were getting rid of all of their physical copies in their libraries. How the heck do you run a library without physical books? Go ahead, class. I know they have some things that are accessible online, but there is a lot of things that are still in hardcover books that are not accessible digitally. Trust me, I have looked.
And again, they need to do it because you know there's going to be a flood or a fire And then all that stuff's going to be gone.
Exactly.
And nobody's going to know it because nobody knows this damn shit.
The military had to learn it the hard way when their record keeping, for I think it was the military or the army at least, the building burned. And I think it lasted like 3 days. And all the records dating back were lost. I'd be like, oh, you've got to be freaking kidding me. Nobody thought to have backup copies or fire, prevention systems or, sprinklers, heaven forbid. But now, the first documented items came to the Society in 1882. Collectors have been formally cataloged since 1904. American Indian, military, and political ephemera characterize the collection. The Society began a formal museum to exhibit these artifacts in 1902 and has had award-winning exhibits ever since. In 1946, the Society began an archaeology program under Edith L. George in response to the Flood Control Act of 1944. Sites along the river due to be flooded were surveyed. State archaeology professionalized and created a state board for archaeology, a forerunner to the modern Archaeological Research Center of the South Dakota State Historical Society that is currently here in Rapid City. Now, Dave Kennedy began professionalizing staff in March of 1968 with the hiring of the museum curator Robert B. Gant. At Gant's suggestion, the Association of South Dakota Museums was formed. As a result of the 1972 state government reorganization, the South Dakota State Historic Preservation Office entered the Society. The National Historic Preservation Act of 1966 established offices in each state. Initially quartered in Vermilion, the office moved to Pierre in 1998. The office operates the Ojai Chapel and the Verende site.
I have a weird question. Am I the only one who thinks it's stupid that we needed to have an act and a law to pass, decided that, hey, we should preserve history in every state?
It really makes you wonder what...
And then we have to have it in every city that can support a historical society, which most can have some sort of organization, but not all of them.
One in each state, and then...
Why did we need to vote on this? Why did we have to waste taxpayers' time and money to decide that this is a thing that we needed to do?
Those guys, you have to yell at her over in Washington.
I'm just saying, it seems like people thought, hey, we should do this, and that should be the end of it.
Yeah.
Especially when it's only affecting that one city, that one state.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the story.
Back to the story.
Or back to the history.
Back to the history. In 1997, the Society organized the South Dakota Historical Society Press as a collaboration of its publications and research department and the South Dakota Historical Society Foundation. Members of the Society had first published beginning in 1870. The Society published member serials in 1936 to 1938 and in 1947 to 1970. The Modern South Dakota History Journal began in December of 1970. In 2014, the South Dakota State Historical Society published an annotated version of Wilder's autobiography titled Pioneer Girl, the annotated autobiography by Laura Ingalls Wilder, Pamela Smith Hill, editor. And in 2023, the Society broke ground on the renovation of its headquarters, the Cultural Heritage Center. I've been kind of watching that on the video feed that they've had a couple times on Facebook. And it is a big building, don't get me wrong. The only problem that I've got with it is that it's open right now by appointment only. They could have done it in sections, but that's just me. Now, some of the programs that they have, of course, Archaeological Resource Center, Museum, South Dakota State Historical Society, South Dakota State Historical Society Press, the State Archives, State Historic Preservation Office. Now, the State Archives is a mixed blessing because they've got a lot of stuff that are in the archives. The problem is finding it,
because nobody knows where anything is.
Yeah, and B, accessing it.
Because you have to go there, and not everybody can go there.
Yeah. Or, my other problem is that if I call them and ask them a question, they might not know the answer.
They never know the answer.
Because there's been times, and I kid you not, again, when I've been researching the one book I'm writing, I'll call both to the county seat and then the State Historical Society, and they'll be like, what?
And I can understand them not knowing every fact, but they should at least know where to find it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I don't know that, but let me go look in this general area. I know it might be in this area here.
Yeah.
But no.
Well, the thing that made me laugh is that I went ahead and I was able to go in the archives, and I was able to find pictures of said town. And the person I'd been talking on the phone was like, there's a town with that name? What?
I repeat, these people are. I'm going to be nice.
Yeah. Now, the other thing to think about, and this is part of the fun of dealing with that fourth generation back, because some of these places I've discovered weren't even, they might have only lasted maybe 3 months, and then they were gone. Whether they had a fire, whether they had a lightning strike, whether the people running the general store decided to run off in the middle of the night because somebody was sick. The towns just don't exist anymore. But there are still locations out there. We have records. We have archives. And the thing is that you have these records that tie back to the post offices. You have records that deal with the schools. You have places where houses still sit. They might not be part of that town anymore, but it's like when you see a house out there in the rural, western part of South Dakota. For all you know, that might have been where a town at one time sat, or it was a homestead, or it was where the one of the ranches had established a camp. There's a lot of random questions that I think the archives and this group need to sit down with their paperwork and go, how much detail can we tie into this one pin in this location here on the map? And then have a way to dig it up where people can find it and research off of it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like driving up to Sturgis.
Right.
Because that's how I found some of my information for, some of my stories and my books I've been working on. Is that, you go into that second generation and then look forward. Now, they also had some interesting fellows as far as the directors go. First one was this Moses Kimball Armstrong, George Washington Kingsbury, George Harper Hand, William Maxwell Blackburn, LLD. Now, the next name up, and this guy, I'm sorry, was just straight out genius. Dylan Robinson. And this guy was such a historian. He made books. He toured the state. He was like a walking library. I wish he still was alive. I would just spend a couple days yakking with him, getting information off of him. Will Grow Robinson, LLB, Dayton Wayne Kennedy, Sr., Junius J.R. Fishburne, Ph.D., you have J.D. Voigt from 2003 to 2020, and then Benjamin F. Jones, Ph.D. That's the present guy that they have listed. Now, the other interesting little item that I was working with here, let me pull up the second file because this is straight out of South Dakota Historical Society itself. They talk about the mission statement. Together we empower audiences to experience South Dakota stories. We professionally collect, preserve, interpret, and publish our history for present and for future generations. We proudly supported by the South Dakota Historical Society Foundation and are an affiliate of the Smithsonian Institution. Big guys. Also, they may be one of the guys that I might be publishing the book through once I get it all squared away.
Maybe.
Also, yeah. We may be bouncing it off of the Newell Library. We'll see how that works. Also the people in Ulrichs and or Custer, Hot Springs, depending on how we want to work that. But it says that the South Dakota State Historical Society was first organized again 1862, established its official relationship with the state government in 1901 through the former Department of History. Originally housed in the state capitol, the society moved in 1932 to the newly completed Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Building across the street. And in 1989, South Dakota celebrated the centennial, and to mark that anniversary and showcase the state's history, that was when the Cultural Heritage Center was built as the new headquarters. Through the years, state government reorganizations have shaped and reshaped the society into the vigorous organization of today. Explore South Dakota history, list your home in the National Register of Historic Places, read the publications and study in a research room, and visit our museum. Now, I have read a number of these books that they have, and some of the things that they put out in a quarterly fashion, some of them are kind of fantastic. Like I've got some flyer ones that are kind of cool, because they'll actually show a name of a town. They'll tell some of the information about where it was. That was when I discovered that there was actually 2 Dakota cities. Because the one that I know about was south of Wasta.
Right, I remember that one.
Yeah, the general store blew up because somebody did something wrong with dynamite.
Uh-oh.
Another story for another time. But then there was a second one that was over close to the Missouri River, and I think it was in Charles Nix County. And so I always was curious how in the world they had 2 different towns with 2 different names, but by the time the second one came into being, the first one was probably already long gone. But some of the buildings are still there. Now, in office within the Department of Education, the Society manages the 5 programs: Archaeology, Archives, Historic Preservation, Museum, and the Research and Publishing. All programs are located at the Cultural Heritage Center in Pierre, with the exception of that State Archaeological Research Center. Sometime we are going to that here in Rapid, and then I get to play 20 questions. The question is, how long am I going to be in the building? Until they shove me out the door and lock the door, probably.
Probably.
Now, this new director, Benjamin F. Jones, is the state historian and the 9th director of the South Dakota State Historical Society. He was born in Sioux Falls, graduated from De Smet High School here in South Dakota. He earned a bachelor's in history from the South Dakota State University, a master's from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and a PhD from the University of Kansas. He served 23 years in the Air Force, where he attained the rank of lieutenant colonel, and was stationed in several locations in the U.S., Pacific, Europe, and Afghanistan, and is a member of the history faculty at the Air Force Academy. Jones was dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Dakota State University from 2013 to 2019. While there, he worked to enhance the General Beadle Honors Program and initiated the Cyber Leadership and Intelligence Degree Program. Now, Governor Noem appointed him Secretary of Education, and he led the development of the department's 2019 strategic plan, which prioritized closing the opportunity gap for students in poverty and improving the academic performance. He also led the department through the COVID pandemic in 2020. He supported legislation to improve civic education in the state, an effort he continues in his current position. In 2016, he published Eisenhower's Guerrillas, the Jedburghs, the Moguls, and the Liberation of France. He currently is at work on the history of the state and hosts a bi-monthly podcast, History 605. Married to Susie, and they have 3 children, Hannah, Elena, and Henry. And he also has an email of ben.jones@state.sd.us. Now, the other aspect that I do have fun with, and you'll hear me talk about this on multiple occasions, is a lot of our history is split. Because
why would we want to put together?
well, heck, because you think about the east side of the state. For the longest time, it was developing at a rapid rate, because on the western side of the river, it was all, considered the Lakota homeland. Understandable. Eventually, the issue at the Black Hills occurred. Reservations were opened. People were moved onto the reservations. The miners came in and tried their efforts to find gold, silver, tin, all sorts of minerals. But you also had people that came to this side of the state who weren't interested in mining at all. They were coming in to open up farms. Ranches were being established. All sorts of places all around western South Dakota. And what I think is kind of interesting is, I've read through some of the archives, and they have a lot of detail about East River. Places like Yankton, places like Brookings, places like Sioux Falls, places like Watertown, Mitchell, you name it, it's over there. But it's almost like there's this void of places in West River. I've noticed it with Jones County, Hackett County, Meade County. Things happen in those counties that it's like the archives fell asleep on. Mm-hmm. Or people just didn't bother to put the information into, a box of information or a database. And so, if this next generation doesn't remember or hear about it, I remember when I was doing some of my digging, and I had no idea that there was a Jonesville or a Wrightsonville. The ones that I knew about, it wasn't until I started digging up like the post office records, and they gave the locations on a property map. Just the other day, we found a school that I would have never have known it was back there until we got a hint from a lady who runs a store in White Owl. And it turns out that's the Cohen School. We got pictures of it. And it is a neat little building. I would love to walk around beside it. Now, next week, we may have a chance to actually see an old school down by Ulrich's, because they're trying to turn it into a museum. And so, the next page of history that we get to see, it's, what we discover now, and we can share with the archives. And hopefully the Historical Society will be interested in some of this stuff. But
hopefully they want history. How dare you?
Heaven forbid. We'll have a whole other way. But this has been the Bearded Historian talking nonsense. And we will see you guys next week on Tuesday. Anything you want to add to the deliberation there, sweetie?
I want them to actually get organized. I don't expect them to know everything, but they should have a general idea of where to find the information.
What I'd love is for them to put things into their... just start with something simple. The counties. I know you've got 65 counties here in South Dakota. It wouldn't be that hard to organize them into counties. And then you could do, modern, you could go back to the state.
Honestly, I would do county, then I would do city, no matter how long it lasted, whether it was 2 days or it still exists. If it had a name, it is an existing city, and maybe city is not the right word, but it's an existing place. So you've got all the places. Then you start from the time it started to the time it ended, if it doesn't exist anymore, right, or current if it still exists. That's the other thing. And then if somebody's like, "Hey, I need information on this time or this place," you know where to find it. Yeah. And in this day and age, there's no reason why it shouldn't be able to be organized in a way where you can easily just search it and find it.
Well, one of the best places I can think of is you look at Lakeside. There's no lake.
Uh-huh. Because why would there be?
But it had 2 schools. It has a cemetery. It has a number of buildings. And there's a heck of a book that I've got in my collection that tells about the families that moved into the area to try to settle it and set up farms. They tried to set up ranches. And not only did it have Lakeside, there was also a little town called Vesta. A little bit further south, there was, had this one little town that had a church, it had a store. What was the name of that one north of,
Haley?
No, it was on the other side of the interstate. It had that church we stopped at. It's north, it's south of Lakeside.
Hang on.
Hang on.
You expect me to know shit? I don't know shit. That's your job. Lakeside. That doesn't actually exist.
We were just talking about it the other day because...
That doesn't mean I remember shit. How dare you? I don't want to...
This is my filing system.
Alright, let's take a look here. We've got... trying to look at what's near here.
Use the map.
I am using the map, but that doesn't mean I'm finding anything. Elm Springs, that's not it.
Wicksville.
Wicksville.
Yeah.
I was getting to that one.
Yeah, Wicksville was up there. Down further south was Onewonka, very nice ghost town. But see, they built this town, and nearby it used to be the Fort Pierre to Deadwood stage line. But the problem that they apparently ran into is that there was a period there where the weather turned very arid. There was not a lot of rain. There was so little moisture, potatoes wouldn't grow. And what these poor people were winding up doing is that, if they lasted out past the arid times and, proved up their land, they would turn around and sell it to the ranchers. And the ranchers didn't mind because then they had more area for the cattle to take and go grazing. But there's a number of churches that were built over there, that I know 2 at least. And then from there, if you kept going north, Elm Springs, which is still a town, sits due north of them. And don't get me wrong, Elm Springs is its own kind of oxymoron because it has a school, it has a church, it has a fire department, and it has a church that is now their town assembly hall. But there's no businesses in that entire town. There might be a total of 20 people that live there. But, and then as you dig through some of the archives, you can see where, like, I know, for example, I think it was AT&T and a couple of the other service providers were trying to keep these people in the loop, laying cable and stuff like that. And it makes sense. From them, I mean, if you go north, you have a little tiny place called Bonilla Springs. And it's got a building, I'm not sure if it's their church. It used to be a school, I'm not sure. I'd love to find out more archive on it. And then across the street, you've got a double wide and a little house, and that's it. Their town is huge. But I think it's also one of those areas where now they're primarily just working on trying to get back into ranch land because there's not a lot of people that live up there.
No.
Between Elm Springs and Enning. It's just, you get out there. We went by one place, and it looks pretty well deserted. There was no cars, there were no trucks. The garage was closed, and you see some of those places where people used to live. And, we took a look at one place that was located by Viewfield Saturday. And it was a beautiful old Sears-style house, a catalog house.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I heard from one lady is that this house had gone through 4 generations.
Wow.
Her grandparents started out there, and they expanded the house from the homestead house. The next generation, the grandparents lived there until they got sick and they had to go to town. They couldn't live out there any longer. The next generation lived there. The one lady who was telling the story grew up there, and then they sold the house to an aunt and an uncle, but they don't even live there. And so this house sits out. And what's kind of crazy is that they have this neat house, but it's all fenced off, and it basically is, no trespassing. It's one of those houses you'd love to get further information about the story on it. But one of the projects that we've also been digging into, dealing with these schools, is that if you went up this road called Curlew Road, apparently at one time there was a lake over there, but we never found it. We never saw it. But if you went north up this road, there used to actually be 2 one-room schoolhouses back in the day. And, when you get out there in the open, you can see a house maybe 5-10 miles away, and you can understand why they needed a schoolhouse out here, because the nearest school might have been all the way over in Elm Springs, which is another good 30 miles away. This is before buses. Back then kids rode a horse to school, or they rode in a wagon with mom and pop. But some of the places where they had schools, they had everything pretty well organized in the general area. And so I'm hoping that, the information that we get for this next presentation they're going to have up in Meade County, up at Sturgis in June, you're going to hear some pretty good stories. So hopefully I'm going to speak a little bit more about it when the future comes. But again, this has been the Bearded Historian. You folks have a good time out there, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.